I was just, asked a quick question there. How many people have actually sat through a session that talks about industry energy, right? Probably not as many. And I think the ordering of industry and also as last in the session is testimony to that, because, we so seldom think about, what is Indian industry actually doing, and if you look at the energy transition debate today, right, this just transition is really taken the entire space by storm, and primarily because it's really become about jobs in the conventional industry and what does it mean for transitioning. If you're asking the question of power sector, right, where of course there are jobs, right, it's not like there aren't jobs, there are jobs in mining and everything. That question surely must be asked of industry, because industry is really one where there are tons and tons of jobs and it adds a lot of value to the economy. Power, of course, is a foundation stone, but let's think about what exactly does industry hold in store for us. So I call this the final frontier in our energy transition, primarily because I think not enough is being done about thinking about what next for Indian industry. And given that most people that we sort of speak to are more concerned about other sectors of the economy, I've chosen to sort of really represent what is Indian industry today, and what does it mean for transitioning that industry to a different energy mix, to do things differently, right? And let's see what we get to at the end of it. So I'm posing more questions really, and I'm hoping that this kind of informs our views about what we need to do with Indian industry. So I'm really thankful to my colleagues Deepa, Jairam, and Jairaman and Tirtha Biswas for putting this together really. So it was an interesting exercise in doing this. So uh, yes. So one second. There's this thing that's kind of blocking my on the top. How do I move my?
Maybe you can minimize it. I think if you hover over it, there's 3 bars.
Oh yeah.
I think it's on your screen. For us, it's clear.
It's clear, is it? Okay, it's going on the top of it. So okay, it's fine. So as you can see, right, what is Indian industry? So Indian industry is basically, this contributor that does about 15-16%. It's been sort of really plateauing, right? So services, as everybody knows, India is a service-driven economy, and industry has sort of really been there, right? There hasn't much that has changed, and so overall industry hasn't really changed, but it has really grown reasonably well over the last 10 years, right? India saw significant growth in not well about 12 years in the lead up to 2018-19. And if I look at the sectors that sort of really contribute to it, I'm looking at transport equipment, I'm looking at iron and steel, chemical fertilizers. Their relative contribution has been the same. I'm looking at, of course, a very narrow period here, because Indian industry really has only taken off post liberalization. It hasn't really sort of shown before. And even if you go back and you start looking at what has really been the change, you will see that the structure has broadly remained the same. So when you talk of transition, you're not really seeing Indian industry do things different, right? So when somebody asks, so what does Indian industry transition mean? Is it only limited to things like hydrogen, right? Or should we be thinking about doing things differently within industry, manufacturing different things? Isn't that also part of the story? If that is it, then Indian industry really has not shown any signs of transition. And I also want to sort of put a caveat here, which is that when I talk of industry, right, I'm talking about that small blue sliver that you're seeing there, right? That which is the formal industry that's recorded, or which there's data that can be tracked, right? And that's like 0.23 million units, right? Whereas the bulk of Indian industry is really not measured, it's not tracked. And if you look at the remaining attributes of that blue sliver and the red sliver, which is the formal and the informal, you'll see that the red sliver, right, literally sort of uh, contributes a lot of jobs, contributes a fair bit of value add as well, right? But on the emissions front, which is really sort of one of the key aspects of this transition debate, it's not really that much, right? So we're really seeing that this formal industry, which is the large iron and steel plants, chemical plants, cement plants, these are the ones that are really contributing a lot of the energy consumption. And that's what we really need to try and see how do we change. So this is something that I want you to remember as we go through it. And if you look at it, right, again, the industrial mix between all of them, right, in terms of total jobs, has again sort of remained relatively stable. So we've not really changed the way we've done things in the last 12, 13 years. I'm going back because I have this sort of repository of data, so we're able to really categorize and talk about industry over this period of 12, 13 years. So again, this tells you that not really much is there, and textile, food processing, machinery, these are the ones where really the jobs in the economy are, right? When we're talking about industry, are we really thinking about these industries? Because when I see all of the sessions, in Paris or wherever, right, everybody is saying iron and steel, cement. I mean, jobs really aren't there, right? The jobs even in the formal sector are really elsewhere. So when we talk about industry transition, right, we should equally be thinking about, what does it mean for all of these industries as well. So Gujarat, right, as a state is really one which sort of really shines bright when it comes to industry. And these are the top 5 states when you think of, overall industrial GVA, right? So these are our industrial powerhouses of the state, of the country, so to say. And industry has driven their growth, which means that their states GDP has not grown as fast as the industrial GDP has. So which means that, when you talk of high income states, of course, UP is a bit of an aberration here, but barring UP, everyone else, you're reminded of high income states. And clearly industry is important to states. Only when you grow your industry do you actually, leave that low income trap and are able to transfer to the next stage. And that's what all of these remaining states have managed to do. And that's one of the reasons why we also need to think of how do we industrialize more states, right? Given that there is no real other paradigm for, increasing income across states, and we're really caught in a state where, agriculture forms the backbone of employment, but is not really providing anybody with any income. So these states have managed to do it. And for that reason, we need to really think about how do we sustain industry, but in a way that, on the energy consumption front and on the environmental footprint front, it doesn't do too badly. And that really brings us here. So let's think about it here. If you look at the top 5 states where value addition in industry, right? Maharashtra, Gujarat, you can see the list there, and you see the top 5 states by energy consumption. You'll see, barring Gujarat, the list of states is completely different, right? States with high energy consumption do not contribute to value add in industry. They're basically producing the low value add commodities, right? You're looking at Gujarat, and you're looking at Odisha and Chhattisgarh and Jharkhand, right? Primarily in the, the primary resources space, whether it's mining and whether it's then, processing of that to produce the commodities that are required by other industries. So there is that disparity there. Gujarat alone seems to have bucked that trend because it does display a fair share of industry in all spaces, right? And that's because of the economic model that has been evolved there. And this is about transitioning polluting industry. We're talking about transitioning those states on the right. The ones on the left, while they also have polluting industry, they have a different kind of industry, right? One which we're not really talking about when you think of transition. And this to me, was actually a bit of a shocker, even when I was sort of, going through the data. And when you see this is a really implication for what does it mean for average wages, right, across all of these sectors. When we talk about transition and not wanting certain kinds of sectors, you really find here that it is the sectors that have the wages are not the ones that are actually supporting the large jobs. So you look at the average wages in sectors, basically the orange bars, right? The wages are much higher in sectors which are energy and resource intensive. If we don't have them, and the salaries in those states, the wages that go to all these employees will necessarily not go through, right? Whereas, the likes of textile and leather and food processing, which are really sort of, the big supporters of employment, the wages are really low there. And that's really what, a lot of people are employed in. So how do we transition to this low energy, base of manufacturing, right? When we really do not have access to, when we're not able to transition all the other states to those sectors. And it's not easy transition to make either. And again, highlighting, these are the top 5 states when it comes to average wages, right? Showing you the total variation basically in wage, barring Maharashtra and Karnataka, right, which have a fair bit of, transport equipment and machinery in their manufacturing mix. You're looking at Jharkhand, Odisha, and Chhattisgarh having really high wages as a result of the kind of industry that they support. And when we think again of industry transition, we're talking about transitioning people out of jobs in these sectors that require the use of coal and energy and all of the resources to doing other things. Right? Again, all of this brings questions to my mind as to how do we think of Indian industry differently. And this sort of, I think, encompasses really what I wanted to sort of say, right? Iron and steel, right, which is that big orange circle that you see there, right, which is perhaps the biggest emitter of carbon dioxide in the economy, as well as criteria pollutants like PM 2.5, NOx, SOx, whatever you want to call it, right, has a big contribution, right? Doesn't really support as much jobs as you can see as the pink dot and the blue dot, food processing and machinery. Right? But it is really important when it comes to output and value add. And one of the reasons why iron and steel industry sort of still looks like, it's not supporting as much value add is because it provides inputs to all the other sectors where the value add actually happens. So for instance, when a Tamil Nadu or a Maharashtra claims to be a transport hub, right, for manufacturing transport equipment, all of that steel is basically coming from the states with manufacturing. So the value add is happening elsewhere, right? They are polluting, right? They're polluting their environment, their forests are getting stripped, but unfortunately the value adding activity is happening in a different state. So when we think about transitioning, we really need to think about how do we ensure that it ends up being just for those states that are manufacturing these primary resources today, right? So, I think that the title, originally proposed was something about energy efficiency. I thought I'll really cover something around it as well. And as everybody knows, India has really had this flagship scheme for, energy efficiency called the PAT scheme. And one of the things that we do notice, in fact, we did a rigorous assessment of the PAT scheme, pre-PAT, which is pre-12, 12, 13, pre-FY12 and post-FY12. And we found that, Indian industry actually was becoming efficient even in the years leading up to PAT. It's not like, PAT really sort of, changed things much. But that said, PAT sort of really did, give it some fillip because there was a financial mechanism out there. But at the end of the day, what really was the biggest factor that drove it was the fact that overall industrial activity actually started slumping in the post-PAT period, right? So energy intensity did come down, and I think a market mechanism like PAT definitely did help. But the fact is that the PAT scheme could have done a lot more. And that's really what we're seeing here in this particular slide, which is to say that if you look at it, right, if the PAT threshold was sort of further lowered and lowered, what we're finding is that for many industries, like for instance, chemicals and paper, right, we find that it could have been very easily sort of, return potential, which is basically, even by including industries which have slightly lower, consumption, we could have actually changed the overall scene in terms of emissions. Whereas it's very, very difficult when it comes to sectors like textile, where, there are a large number of MSMEs. And you'll have to cover a lot of industries to actually observe some significant reduction in the overall energy consumption of the sector. And that's really the problem with Indian industry, which is that the top 90% of the top 90% of the energy is actually consumed by about 10% of the industrial units. So unless we're able to sort of do something to talk about the remaining 90%, they'll all probably remain in this in this current state that they're in, and any talk of transition really becomes sort of meaningless in their case. And one of the reasons why we should really be thinking about industry is this, right? I think in today's time, we find that, Indian industry is not really that leader when it comes to overall emissions. But, if the IEA is in a new policy scenario, and I think any other exercise that you might see happening even in India, will tell you that, if you let it sort of stay as it is, it might become the next big source of emissions for India, because we're addressing the power sector in a concerted manner, but we're not necessarily doing it for Indian industry itself. And I think the powerful point that I really want to leave this particular slide with is this, that even if iron and steel, cement, ammonia, petrochemicals, all of them were to be done in the best in class technology today, right? What we find here is that the overall emissions would probably go from 13% of the current global budget to about 15% to about 13%. So there's very marginal improvement that's actually possible if we just purely focus on energy efficiency. Energy efficiency can do only so much because all of these products that we need are at the end of the day energy intensive and they're product intensive. How do you actually do that, right? How do you address that? And that's where
Karthik,
yes,
sorry,
yes,
just before you transition,
yeah.
So a small request to maybe go a little slower for our translators to keep up.
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I mean, this is the problem with the way I speak. So unfortunately, I try to keep that in mind, but I tend to forget that. But yes, sorry about that. Yes. So as you can see here, should I just repeat the message in this particular slide, maybe?
I think this is fine. I think we can go ahead. I didn't
Got it. Perfect. Thank you so much. Yeah.
But I think you're good.
So, as I said, energy efficiency is not alone going to cut it, which is why, we can talk up the PAT scheme and we can deepen it, we can bring more industrial units under the fold. But unless we really think of moving away to a different fuel mix, and that's really what the power sector is doing, right? Going from carbon intensive fuels to other fuels like renewable energy, and similar thing needs to happen in the case of Indian industry as well. But as I said, remember all the problems, right? The states which produce it, right? All of that is very, very dependent on coal and everything else itself. So shifting to a low carbon mix is the thing. And this is where I think a lot of us would have heard of different options that are being put out. But let me just put forward a possible future here. We're seeing here a trajectory of where Indian industry is, right? Will be, let's say, in the 2015 through 2040 timeline. And we find that in a reasonably aggressive scenario, right, with with technology penetrations in a significant way, with hydrogen and natural gas coming in, we find that coal may still end up contributing about 43% of delivered energy in 2040, right, which is a fair bit already, right? Iron and steel, cement, aluminum, right, they will continue to be the drivers of this demand, right? They aren't innovating nearly fast enough to go away from their dependence on carbon and perhaps the pollution that goes along with it, whether it's carbon dioxide or whether it's criteria pollutants. So it is very important to really think of what will we do to change this. And of course, in that vein is where we think of fuels like hydrogen. As you can, if any of you who've been following the debate online, you will see that there's probably a session every week, right, talking about green hydrogen, producing hydrogen from from renewable energy. But the reality is basically in this slide, which is that hydrogen today, right, hydrogen in 2040 will in an aggressive scenario will probably be at about $1.7 to a kg, right? And if we wanted to basically replace coal, which is that brown bar that you see there, it needs to come down to about $0.7 per kg. So in 2040, with an aggressive pursuit, we're saying that hydrogen goes up to about 1.7, whereas it needs to be about 0.7 then to be able to replace coal, right? And that's really where coal is at today itself already. So which means, we're really faced with a steep task of technological innovation and process innovation, because at the end of the day, a lot of our industries currently are, designed to use these conventional fuels, right? Changing a blast furnace to use a gas will require a fair bit of innovation. Changing a blast furnace to use natural gas also requires innovation. So all of that innovation is not, unfortunately, happening at the pace at which we would like to. When you talk about Indian industry, specifically steel, for instance, we're miles away, even on the energy efficiency front, right, in terms of overall emissions footprint. So that innovation really needs to seep into Indian industry, and it's been under the radar, so to say, for many decades. The good part is this, that in India, energy is priced very high, right? Whether it's coal, whether it's electricity, right? And it's a busy slide here, sorry about it, but the gist of it is this, right? That given the price at which coal is delivered to Indian industry, I'm talking specifically about a large energy guzzler called sponge iron industry, which is about 35% of overall steel manufacturing. We're saying that given that India prices coal so high, these guys can actually be competitive if they start using natural gas, which is expensive but cleaner. Problem is, of course, India does not have much of natural gas either, right? It is cleaner, it can have a lot of positive environmental outcomes, but it does put a significant burden on imports. Now, if we did go in for that, it can actually produce steel which is competitive with domestically coal-based manufacturing. But our industry is thinking out of the box to actually enable the solution. Our policymakers thinking about it. This is unfortunately not common knowledge that this can actually be done. We think that coal is, at the end of the day, the cheapest option that's available to us, which is really not the case. And finally, right, I think I'll just leave you with some food for thought, which and I think when we think of industry and we think of transition, one of the primary aspects for me today is industrial pollution, right? And we think of the future. One of the things we must think about is, are our industries sort of really being held to account when it comes to their overall environment footprint? And when you see this, right, basically only a few pollution control boards across the country today are actually disseminating information on what their industries are actually up to, providing the data online and ensuring that they're all compliant. Only very few states do. Right? Madhya Pradesh Pollution Control Board is perhaps the best in the country, whereas if you progressively go up, many of the industrialized states do not actually have that kind of reporting. Unless we actually have it, it's probably going to be very difficult for us to understand what is the harm that our industry is doing to our environment itself. Not just carbon dioxide, but we're talking about criteria pollutants, because at the end of the day, that is really what is damaging the local economies and local environment in many of these places. So this really needs to change. So as we talk about industrial transition, let's ensure that we're monitoring all our industries better, and let's ensure that we're holding our pollution control boards to account when it comes to reporting online about this. This is really a slide about the energy transition. So as you can see in this particular graph here, right? I mean, India is basically somewhere in the $6,000, $7,000 category there, and we have this energy mix. If you draw a vertical line at the $6,000 mark, you will basically see a sort of contribution from various industries, right? And we find that as countries transition, right, they basically change to a different industrial mix, and that's the way it works, right? Today nobody finds apparel manufacture or textile, or leather manufacture happening in the West, primarily because it is effectively the domain of poorer economies, because that's where a large number of jobs are, but the value add is also lower. Rich economies don't want to do it. So as India transitions, it will start weaning off its dependence on textiles and leather and all of that automatically. While they're not heavy on they are of course reasonably heavy on the environmental footprint, not so much on energy. But what plans for India to actually transition those who depend on that industry today to other jobs, right? Unless we actively think about it, a transition is actually going to be very, very difficult. But what will it mean also for the share of heavy energy intensive industries? This also technically goes down, right? So today, a lot of the steel manufactured in Europe is actually moved out to Eastern Europe. can India afford to just move it out somewhere else, in the garb of, basically making its overall production greener? It's a tough ask, basically, because, India does not have that kind of resource base. And I want to sort of, showcase a particular example of an industrial energy transition. The electric vehicles, I think we want to tie it up with what we started off with at the start, right? We clearly see that, EVs are a great thing, right? When it comes to, as Professor Mohan also said, on emissions and a lot of those fronts. But at the core of it, electric vehicles is about industrial transition. Because, what we see here is that electric vehicles opens up a lot of opportunity when it comes to, manufacturing in a new sector, capturing the value add that comes along with it. Instead of becoming an import dependent entity, we basically manufacture. We have a fantastic ecosystem for manufacturing vehicles. But notice on the trade-offs, we actually lose jobs in ICE manufacturing, right? Vehicle jobs that are basically possible in the the conventional car industry supports more jobs than than electric vehicle manufacture would. So basically, and what is the reason for that? Primarily because the job intensity associated with electric powertrain manufacture is far lesser than ICE powertrain manufacture, right? So the industry basically also then will start supporting a lot lesser jobs. So this is something that we have to actively think about. And all of this, by the way, in a scenario where we actively try to indigenize a lot of the components. If we don't, we lose far more jobs in the battery manufacturing and everything else. So India really needs to think hard about, how do we get all of these jobs to stay within the economy as we transition, right? And that's really what the explanation is. And the final slide really here is this, right? So in the future, it is possible that, we may not be depending on coal, we may not be depending on gas and whatnot, maybe dependent entirely on, green hydrogen that's coming from somewhere, right? Which is from renewable energy, solar-based green hydrogen. Now, the problem is the solar resource, right, is not evenly distributed across the country. It's again, Gujarat, as you can see, the darkest orange, right? And then there's some in central India. There's obviously, maybe there might be other forms of energy, and maybe we'll improve efficiency enough to get hydrogen and solar energy in other parts of the country as well. But what happens to those resource-rich states of Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, where a lot of the heavy industry today is, right? That's where all the iron ore is. But in transitioning our industry, what are we going to do about their ability to stay afloat? Now, as you saw in that early slide on there, right? Wages and incomes coming from those sectors are very, very high, right? We may not think of people employed in Orissa in a in an iron ore factory is doing well, but the factory, in fact, they're doing pretty well, right? So how do we sustain all of those jobs? How do we ensure that in transition to different fuels and different industry mixes, we don't leave behind those who currently enjoy a fairly sort of successful career? And I think that's really what we need to think about when we think about industrial energy transition. So I don't have the answers to that, but I just thought I'll put this out there so that we know what exactly is it that Indian industry does. So thank you so much for that.